The morning sun began to stretch its golden fingers through the tall windows of the Justice Center, casting a warm and steady light over the polished mahogany benches. It was a day meant for clarity, for the untangling of long-held knots, and for the quiet restoration of order. Inside the courtroom of the Honorable Judge Judy, the air was thick with the weight of 18 years of shared history. This was not merely a case of numbers and ledgers. It was a story of two people, Jill Wyatt and John Moore, whose lives have been interwoven through nearly 2 decades of friendship, companionship, and inevitable complications that follow a long acquaintance. The bailiff called the court to order, his voice steady and resonant, as everyone rose to acknowledge the entrance of the judge. Case number 3046, Wyatt versus Moore, was officially on the docket. Jill Wyatt stood behind the plaintiff table, her expression a mixture of fatigue and hope. Opposite her stood John Moore, a man whose presence seemed to fill the room with a complex energy. They had been in each other's orbits since the early years of the millennium, witnessing the changing seasons of their lives together. The judge looked over her spectacles, her eyes keen and searching for the human truth behind the legal filings. She began by addressing the nature of their bond. Jill explained that they had known each other for approximately 18 years. It was a lifetime of shared memories. They had lived together on several occasions, most recently in January of the year 2022. They had shared a home, a house where they sought to build something together, though the legalities of the lease were informal, based on a verbal arrangement that John had made with the owner. As the testimony unfolded, it became clear that their relationship was a tapestry of coming together and drifting apart. John maintained that they had never been a formal couple, describing a situation where he lived with a current girlfriend, while Jill was a frequent presence. The judge, with her trademark wisdom, noted that the details of shared life are often found in the small things, such as knowing the temperament of the lady living upstairs. One does not possess such specific knowledge unless one has actually resided within those walls. The narrative then shifted to a more somber chapter in Jill's life. In the year 2018, a difficult moment had led to a conviction for a minor offense. By the year 2022, this mistake resurfaced when a violation of probation, caused by a failure to maintain contact with an officer, resulted in Jill being ordered to serve 78 days in a correctional facility. The crime itself was a poignant reflection of a moment of need, a theft involving a Thanksgiving dinner valued at approximately $170. It was a story of a woman trying to provide a holiday meal, a human error that now carried a heavy price. Before she began her sentence, Jill reached out to the one person she felt she could trust with the fragments of her life. She gave John her mobile phone, which held the keys to her bank account and her connection to the world. She asked him to look after her trailer, to pay her utilities, and to ensure that she had funds for her commissary needs while she was away. It was a gesture of profound vulnerability, an entrustment of her survival to a longtime friend. John accepted the responsibility, though his execution of these duties became the heart of the dispute. He admitted to using the funds in Jill's account, claiming the money was spent on her behalf for her bills and for her comfort. However, Jill alleged that upon her release, she found her accounts depleted and her belongings in disarray. There was the matter of her car, a vehicle that John had taken it upon himself to drive while she was incarcerated. John explained that he had driven the car for what he described as a very short distance, a journey of only 1 block to his place of employment. His own truck was loaded with heavy line equipment, and he found it more convenient to use Jill's vehicle for the quick trip. However, during this brief excursion, the car's alternator failed, leaving it stranded in a driveway. The vehicle was subsequently impounded by the authorities. To retrieve the car, John had to navigate a complex web of bureaucracy, retitling the vehicle in his own name and securing new insurance, claiming he did so to prevent the car from being lost to the mounting impound fees of $30 every single day. He spent $1,000 of Jill's money to settle these costs. The judge listened with a practiced ear, identifying the inconsistencies in the tale. She pointed out that a person acting with true care would have called a towing service to take the vehicle to a repair shop rather than allowing it to be impounded. She questioned the logic of retitling a car that did not belong to him, noting that no impound service will release a vehicle to someone who was not the legal owner without a forged or coerced signature. The hole in the narrative grew deeper as the judge scrutinized the timeline of these events. In the middle of this legal storm stood a quiet figure, Andrew Porter, Jill's adult son. The judge looked at him and then back at Jill, asking why a mother with a capable and hard-working son would choose to leave her affairs in the hands of an ex-boyfriend with a complicated domestic life. It was a moment of reflection for everyone in the room, a reminder that we often overlook the steady support of our own family in favor of more turbulent connections. John Moore, however, was not only defending himself, but also pursuing a counterclaim of $2,000 for what he alleged was a false arrest. He spoke of an evening in February when they both found themselves at the same local establishment. He claimed that Jill had pressured him to leave with her, and when he reminded her that they were no longer a couple, she created a scene. He alleged that he was later arrested based on a false report of domestic violence. Yet, as the judge examined the records, she found that the domestic violence case had been dismissed not because of innocence, but because John had entered into an agreement to pay restitution. He had delivered a check for $246 to the prosecutor's office to cover the cost of Jill's eyeglasses, which had been broken during the encounter. By signing that agreement and paying the restitution, he had effectively accepted responsibility for the incident. The judge, with a voice that was both firm and instructional, reminded the parties that the truth is not a flexible concept. It does not change based on convenience or the passage of time. She saw through the layers of excuses and the back and forth of financial transactions on digital payment applications. She saw two people who had allowed their lives to become messy because they had forgotten the basic principles of clear boundaries and honest communication. In her final ruling, Judge Judy addressed the core of the matter. She found that the $1,000 taken from Jill's account for the car impound was a loss Jill should not have suffered. She dismissed John's counterclaim for false arrest, noting that his own actions and agreements led to his legal troubles. The judgment was awarded to Jill Wyatt in the amount of $1,000. As the court adjourned, there was a sense of relief that the truth had been spoken. Jill walked away with her son, a bit wiser and ready to rebuild her life with the support of her family. John Moore left the courtroom, perhaps reflecting on the consequences of being what he jokingly called monogamously challenged. The story of Wyatt versus Moore was a testament to the fact that even in the middle of a legal battle, there are lessons of human value to be learned. It was a story about the importance of trusting the right people, the necessity of taking responsibility for one's mistakes, and the enduring hope that comes when the truth finally emerges. It was a reminder that while the past may be complicated, the future is always an open road, waiting for us to navigate it with a little more wisdom and a lot more heart. The 18 years they had shared were now a closed book, and a new chapter of independence and clarity was beginning for them both. The courtroom emptied, the lights were dimmed, and the echoes of the day's drama faded into the quiet of the evening. Justice had been served, not with a hammer of tragedy, but with the gentle hand of a lesson well taught, leaving everyone with a renewed sense of the simple beauty of an honest life. Moving forward, both Jill and John had the opportunity to choose better paths, to find joy in the positive emotions of new beginnings, and to appreciate the educational value of the challenges they had overcome. It was a healthy and inspiring end to a long and winding journey through the heart of human experience.